The second criteria for Unit B looks at and focuses on approaches and styles that you might use as a teacher or trainer. Now, modern sort of teaching and training, the best style really is a varied style, and you don't want to be that one-dimensional teacher where all you do is read from a textbook, or all you do is actually write on the board and people copy it down. So that's what we're really looking for, you to actually have different styles, and depending on the topic that you're actually teaching, that you can actually sort of adapt and teach it in different ways. So I've put a few key ones on here, so I'm sure you're all familiar with sort of lecture styles. This is likely to come from you'll have a presentation, and it can be really good for getting a lot of information across to sort of large numbers. I guess you just have to be wary, with lectures, that you're careful and that you sort of fully engage the group. And sometimes when it's a lot of sort of PowerPoint based presentations, people can switch off, and so there's still a skill to lecture style, making sure you still manage to hold the room. Discussions. Quite a lot of people like to have group discussions, debates, particularly on sort of topical subjects. This can be really useful for allowing people to voice their opinions and develop their sort of listening and communication skills. Something you may consider with discussions is making sure that you're fair, and you give equal opportunities for people to actually contribute within the actual classroom discussions. Group work, I touched on it briefly earlier on. A lot of people who like to use group work, can be good for interacting, getting people discussing areas, and then maybe doing sort of mini presentations, giving feedback to the rest of the group. I guess just maybe one sort of limitation in group work is trying to keep the sizes reasonably small, so that people have an opportunity to contribute, and having an awareness of your group dynamics so that you put sort of suitable people together within the groups that you actually choose. The last sort of example I put on there, practical role play. So maybe scenarios, something like that, can be really useful for sort of bringing subjects to life, trying to relate them to real life situations. I guess sometimes you might have to consider, when you do sort of practical elements, that some people might not be so keen and might not be quite as motivated. So maybe you've got to manage that within the room as well. So what this criteria is really focused on is asking us about, strengths and limitations of different styles you might use. If you have a look in your textbook from pages 109 to 124, Angravels gives you a sort of all-encompassing table looking at strengths and limitations of all the various different approaches you might need. And what I want you to do really for this one is to actually pick out, several of these and look at the strengths and possible limitations of the approaches you might use or are currently using within your specialist subject.